This is the end of the world. Well, it's a last man standing match.
This not only could end his career or cause him to lose, but this could end his career. I thought that was pretty par for the course.
A former wrestling champion has recently compared a highly talented AEW wrestler to a well-known WWE star on a podcast. Bully Ray, the guest speaker on the Busted Open Radio podcast, drew a comparison between Kenny Omega and AJ Styles, stating that Omega is a tremendous wrestler who reminds him of Styles. I actually have grown to like Kenny Omega more and more because, one, I've seen range from Kenny that I never thought I would see. I always looked at Kenny as that typical. I looked at Kenny as the next incarnation of AJ Styles. Tremendous in the ring, could go in the ring, the flaps, the dives, the really cool shit, but you hand him the stick and then it didn't go as well in the ring.
Omega and the Tokyo Dome. Because the match that brought me and you together, Dave, was Omega Okada 1. 6 years ago, you went on record to say on social media that was the greatest match you had ever seen. And I got in touch with you immediately, and this is when we were just still friendly as you radio host and me pro wrestler. And I said, are you serious? That's the greatest match you've ever seen? A guy who put so much stock into Flair and Steamboat, and this Okada Omega, when psychology was thrown right out the door and they used a table in the match and the referee was on the floor for 3 minutes, to me, that was a glaring hole, and that's what started our whole partnership, business, friendship, whatever you want to call it, on 100%. This show.
He would go on to discuss the evolution of Omega, concluding, I've seen Kenny evolve. I like it when I see that snarky dickhead Kenny Omega, or when I actually see Kenny get a little bit serious about his wrestling. Omega has recently opened up about what stopped him from pursuing a run in the WWE. In December 2022, AJ Styles suffered an ankle injury that has sidelined him from the longest that he's been out of the ring. If you want to witness the greatest of Kenny Omega, look no further than his tope, a dive from the ring to the outside that many wrestlers perform. However, Omega executes it like no other. He seems to hang in the air, his body almost pausing to allow you an extra moment to marvel at his display of athletic potential. When watching professional wrestling, one is expected to suspend disbelief, but is that meant to include one's belief in the law of gravity? Does he hang in the air for 1 beat, 2 beats, 4? Eventually, he collides with his opponents and a sudden physicality replaces a graceful sublimity. This combination defines modern wrestling and is, if not unique to Omega, perhaps just expressed by his style. Cody Rhodes, a former Omega opponent and partner, says he has such a unique style that there's nothing in wrestling I can really compare it to. Maybe a football analogy is best. He's like a mobile quarterback in a world of passes. We are used to passing quarterbacks who throw it in the pocket. Kenny is in wrestling, what the running quarterback has become to the NFL. He's that different. He looks at wrestling in a vastly different way. He's very open, he's very passionate, he's very committed. He's a very special wrestler. There aren't any other wrestlers that I can compare him to. Omega is widely regarded as the best professional wrestler of his era, if not all time. His matches are so legendary that the sport's leading critic, the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer, once gave one of his bouts 7 stars. This is a noteworthy fact, considering his scale typically only goes as high as 5. Omega has broken the traditional systems of wrestling and has no intention of stopping. He aims to completely revolutionize the sport by moving away from the past and focusing on the future. He is inspired by his love of anime, video games, and cinema. In an exclusive interview with Bleacher Report, Omega stated, I'm not really a fan of wrestling anymore. I'm more of a fan of TV dramas, video games, and movies. I like the way these forms of media attract fans, and I use them as inspiration for my storylines and matches. I try to be original in my performances and put together a different approach compared to the average wrestler. I want to tell human stories that will tug at your heartstrings. As he breaks away from the norm, Omega has garnered both praise and criticism. His critics have ramped up their rhetoric to match his praise. However, Cody Rhodes believes that Omega's commitment in detail is one of the most old-school things in wrestling today. The things that make Omega so appealing to his fans, such as extravagant flourishes, romanticism, and behind-the-scenes steeliness, are not appreciated by those who desire a more serious and self-important approach to the sport. Omega has his vision for what wrestling can be, which explicitly rejects traditional methods. He has no interest in confronting to the conformable techniques of the past. He views legendary wrestlers like Ric Flair and Kazuchika Okada as successful but formulaic. They have set a main style, which he believes is copied and pasted. Although the reaction to this formula is always the same, Omega believes it lacks creativity. I think that's why the Kenny Omega boom started. There's no Kenny Omega copy and paste formula. It's all different. It's difficult and very mentally draining. And because I do that, maybe it makes me not a true wrestler's wrestler. What I'm trying to do is not attract the wrestler's wrestling fan. I'm trying to open up the world to that wrestling can be and show that there is no limitation to what wrestling can be. I went way outside the box. I wasn't using the age-old wrestler formula, where if you do this, it's going to get a reaction, so you make this set list of things at the time and know it's definitely going to work. I try to make everything unique, almost anti-wrestling in a way, but still existing within the four sides of a wrestling ring, Rhodes said. Starting a discussion on wrestling artistry by dismissing two of the most sacred figures is a bold move. But if anyone has the credentials to back it up, it's Kenny Omega. He has always looked to forge his path, even when the way ahead looked impossible to navigate. Omega walked away from a WWE development contract, uncomfortable with both the rigid inconsistency wrestling could have and only perform one way, and the casual abuse that seemed a harbinger of unhappiness. Sometimes setting out to find your place in this world can be lonely. It's that crushing feeling that leads many to give up entirely, with the idea of making it in wrestling without the corporate support of WWE seeming so daunting it hardly seems worth the effort. However, before Omega gave into the darkness, he found a beacon, a partner willing to take the journey with him. Kota Ibushi was another paternally gifted wrestling prodigy, unafraid, well, of seemingly anything. Together, the two men wrote the greatest love story in the history of professional wrestling and, with a group of like-minded peers, changed the way wrestling looked and felt. Their goal was to spread wrestling beyond the existing fanbase, create stories and moments that could lure outsiders into the strange world. I felt if I could innovate my style, that maybe I could reach a new fanbase and even expand the pro wrestling horizon, Omega says. I started small, and I started kind of testing the waters at DDT. We had crowds of 2 to 250, but by the time I had really taken off, DDT sold out Budokan, one of the biggest venues for wrestling in Tokyo. I didn't really know what I was doing from things I thought would be entertaining to my friends and family, but it was working. I had comrades and allies who shared the same goals as me, Ibushi and Michael Nakazawa, among others. There was a small group of us as I traveled the world. I would meet these people and they would have the same ideas, the same visions, the same goals, just wanting something more. El Generico, WWE's Sami Zayn, the Young Bucks, and eventually Cody came around. Next thing you know, we had this alternative professional wrestling brand. None of our ideas were exactly alike, but could exist in the same world together and provide this alternative. Tyson Smith, known professionally as Kenny Omega, is a Canadian wrestler who performs in All Elite Wrestling, AEW, and is also an executive vice president. Prior to joining AEW in 2019, Omega was associated with New Japan Pro Wrestling, NJPW, from 2014 to 2019, where he held the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, IWGP Heavyweight United States Championship, and other titles. Omega was a member and once the leader of the Bullet Club stable and incorporated video game elements in his persona. He has also performed in independent promotions worldwide, including DDT Pro Wrestling, Jersey All Pro Wrestling, and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, as well as larger promotions such as Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, and Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide. In Impact Wrestling and Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide, he won the Impact World Championship and AAA Mega Championship respectively. In AEW, he has held the AEW World Championship, the AEW World Tag Team Championship, and the AEW World Trios Championship. So that's all from today's video. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe, and more sports updates. Share your thoughts in the comment section and share it with your friends. See you soon.